Dr. Pöttering, thank you very much for your wonderful insights and very, very interesting panel discussion. I just wanted to explore a bit more on your thoughts on European identity and how it can account for differences of opinion and perhaps slightly differing values if you're thinking in terms of a one European set of values, if you like.
I think, Hermann, that we in the European Union should know that we are not just a geographical or political union, but that we, the 28 member states of the European Union, with more than 500 million people, are united on the basis of values. And these values are the dignity of the human being, the human rights, liberty, democracy, the legal order, peace, and we are hopefully always united on the basis of solidarity. And as far as our identity is concerned, as Europeans, it's very important that we always know that these values unite us. But we are not only Europeans. You are, if I'm correct, a British citizen coming from Scotland. So you have your Scottish identity, you have your British identity, and you have a European identity. And there is even one further identity. I don't know from which city you come, but if you would come, for instance, from Edinburgh, you would have the identity of a citizen of Edinburgh. And so we have to see this in connection. Being a citizen of Edinburgh, being a Scottish, being a British, being a citizen of the European Union, and even we have a responsibility for the world. And so there should not be a difference between the different identities. They are additional. And if we have an understanding that we have our home, in German we have the beautiful word of Heimat. This would mean you are somewhere at home where you have your family, your friends, so where you really have your grassroots. And then you belong to a region, to a nation, and to the European Union. And I think all this is part of our identity.
You consider Europe as some form of Heimat
as
well?
Yes, sure.
If that's the case, to what extent do you feel that that the European Union has a how should I put this, a mandate to micromanage, not necessarily really finely micromanage, but to what extent do you feel that the European Union has a right to interfere with internal affairs of member states in order to ensure that that those common values are upheld?
To interfere sounds a little bit negative, if you allow me to say that. If we are a political community based on values, this is one thing. But from this, it goes to very concrete interests as well. And in the European Union, of course, we have not only our values, we have interests as well. But my belief is that the interests always have to follow the values. And we have the internal market. An internal market means free exchange of people, of persons, of capital, of services, and of goods. And we have to see this together, and to really to have a free market, that the Scottish can export their goods to Germany or to which country of the European Union soever. There should not be any obstacles, and this needs European legislation. So this, on the one hand side, is an interference, or one could say it's an interference in national or regional or local politics, but on the other hand side, this European harmonization makes it possible to export from one country to the other. So I think we have to explain to the people better that some harmonization is necessary to have this free exchange of people, capital, services and goods.
I'd just like to finish up by asking you something more specific about Germany in particular, and Germany's role in the European Union. It's often rightly or wrongly seen as a power, as a major power in the European Union. How do you sort of reconcile that attitude with the common value of unity and equality within the Union?
We as Germans know well our history, the good parts and the bad parts. And we have had 12 years of our history from 1933 to 1945. I was born in September 45, immediately after the war, and my father was killed in the last days of the war as a simple soldier, so I never saw him. And this is a reason, psychologically, I think, for my European political engagement. And so we Germans know our history, and we know that we have an obligation that this never happens again from Germany or each other country. And so it was Konrad Adenauer, and I have the honor to chair the foundation which is named after Konrad Adenauer, who started, when he became Chancellor in 1949, the process of reconciliation with the other people in Europe at that time. And were the French, with the foreign minister, Robert Schuman, who grew up in the frontier area in France, near to Germany, who started from France this reconciliation. And so we Germans felt always an obligation to be in favor of reconciliation, because we started the war and the terrible things with Holocaust and all these terrible developments. And so we always felt responsible for reconciliation and uniting Europe, because Europe meant and means in its very heart peace, peace in liberty. And now, since we are reunited, we should feel even a greater responsibility to go the European direction. And the Germans should never forget that we would not be united on the basis of liberty if the Polish, for instance, with Solidarność, would have not gone the way of defending the values we share together. And so this gives us Germans an obligation to continue the European way. And if you see it in a global way, if you see the global aspect, we Europeans can only defend our values and interests together. Alone we cannot. The Germans, or Germany, in the European Union, Germany is the biggest country by numbers, by the economy, and this gives us even a greater responsibility for the unification of Europe. But for us Germans, it's always a balance to be responsible on the one hand side, what I think is very necessary, and on the other hand side not to be dominant because of our history. And so we should always, as Germans, but the others as well, respect the smaller countries in the European Union. All countries have their dignity, and so we have to use our responsibility for Europe, that we have a way together into the future in the 21st century.
Dr. Pöttering, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
I thank you very much, Gil. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. Okay.